house here. We are live with our guest, Mike DeChellis from Hero Restoration. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, doing great, Steven. How are you?
Doing wonderful on this Sunday evening. So Mike reached out to me. He said he had an idea for like a series of videos. One of them would be what comic book grading, and you had a lot of other good ideas too that we could do.
Yeah, like we can also talk about storage conditions, bags and boards, that type of stuff,
Right.
and then other categories like that. Things that I've done research on as part of the services that I provide and my interest in the hobby.
It sounds great. Yeah, I mean, if you're knowledgeable about it and people can learn something, I think that's a win for everyone. So this will be the first of a few live sessions that we'll do. Today we're gonna do. It's gonna be what tips on how to grade comics. Now I'm looking at your desk, and I was wondering if we were gonna do modern age or silver or whatever. And it looks like we have some what silver to bronze age books there.
We got yeah, everything from golden age to newer bronze Star
Okay.
Wars.
So before we
And
get
I don't have any modern books in front of me, but that's okay because the some of these Bronze Age books are 9:8 screens, so they'll do just fine.
Sounds good. Before we get started, we're streaming on YouTube and Facebook, and that's the first time I'm doing this. So I want to make sure before we even get going that we show some love to everyone that's watching. So on Facebook, we got Brandon Wilson, Mike Murley, and on YouTube, we got a few people joining already. Bob Blanton's in the house. Magic the Krakening's here. Jesse Say What, Drawing Whatever, 90MF, Robles Collects. And we got a few people starting to join in right now. Cool. Our boy Joe Goose in the house. The the man Bruce Wayne himself. Oh, Mike closer to me. All right, I got you. Yeah, how's the audio sound? Because we were kind of messing with that earlier too. So let us know in the comments if anything. All right, cool. So Mike, what do you got planned for us? What do you want to start?
Well, we're going to start. We're going to start the beginning. Uh, Cover some of the history of how grading got started and how it evolved,
Mm-hmm.
and then talk about how to grade, and we'll cover some stuff for beginners, and we'll cover some stuff for the someone that already knows how to grade or already knows a lot about grading.
Mm-hmm.
We'll also talk about CGC grading, so third party grading. And if we don't cover it all tonight, then we'll run another segment on it as we go through it.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll probably spend like an hour or so, depending on how much time you have.
Yeah, something like that sounds about right.
All right, cool. So yeah, got a lot of cool books on the desk. I see. What do you have? The is that the first appearance of Shang-Chi? Is that Marvel Special 15?
Yeah, geez, so many of this is a hot book right now,
Yeah, for sure.
right? Everybody's going crazy for it. I see a lot of them come in. This one single submission had multiple copies in various conditions
Mm-hmm.
from one that looks near mint, I think, one that's very fine, and one that isn't because it's got a big defect that we want to talk about when we talk about grading.
And while we look at that, I'm going to pull up that Marvel Special, and I want to see what it's been selling for on GPA.
Oh,
I think
yeah, that's a good idea. I didn't pull GPA up yet.
I think
I
is it
didn't want to get
called
into that.
is it called Special Marvel Edition? That's it, right? And then that's issue
Yeah,
15. All right,
right.
so a 9.8 is averaging $5,000 right now.
Oh my gosh.
So I know he's
Jeez.
hoping for a 9.8 on that near mint one. So do you want to look at that one first, and maybe you start at near mint plus, and then every little defect you see, you kind of work your way down, right?
Um, on books that you think are gonna be near mint, yes. So this book here, for example, has a big color break crease on the corners. So that's not a near mint book. So I wouldn't start at near mint. I'd go the other direction. I'd maybe start at fine and then work up.
That makes sense.
So whichever direction looks like it's going to be the shortest for you to get to where you want to go. Now, I don't want to get too far ahead here because here's what happens with this book. You're gonna see what I'm gonna do, but I was gonna explain this in more steps. So I'm gonna turn the light on here real quick.
All right.
I am looking through 10 times magnification, jeweler's lamp, art lamp, whatever you want to call it. And it has a light in it so that I can see really good. And magnification is really helpful for grading books.
You know,
It's a
it's funny,
must.
Mike. That's the first time I think I've heard somebody do that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Well, it is because, okay, if I look at it like this, well, yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
Near mint. Then I get under here and I can see, oh, yeah, color break on the spine, color break on the spine. You know what? So this isn't a 9/8 because I'm rattling off color breaks on the spine. But besides the spine, there's not much else going on. And so that means maybe it's a 9/4. Have to spend more time on it. But what's a 9/4 going for?
A 9/4 is going for about $12.50.
Yeah, and and it's probably a 9/2.
Okay, so 9/2 that'll probably get them about
because there's
$1,000.
There's something I'm not seeing there. Just I didn't even look at the back cover or nothing yet because we'll go over that in steps.
And then you know, the book is gonna probably continue to go up until the movie releases. The once the movie comes out, I tend to notice that the prices start to go down then.
Almost like clockwork, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Most of them do. I think the Spider-Man books are an exception. He's a really popular character, so each movie just kind of seems to push it up more. But almost every book will sell for more the month before the movie comes out than in any other time.
Yeah, for sure.
Or at least in a short span of time, because they'll go back up later on. Right.
Gotcha.
So gloves. These seem like maybe you don't really need them if you're going to be handling your books. But you should wear them because of fingerprints. Fingerprints affect the grade really bad.
Are they cotton gloves? We had a viewer say why cotton gloves? Those soak up skin oil. Is that something that you found?
No. Okay, so I don't know for sure what these are on hand. They're not cotton. They're like a nylon. They're called no lint inspection gloves.
Okay.
Right, because when you're a presser, you don't even want lint around. So these don't lint up. They're nylon. You wear them for about a week and then you throw them out.
Gotcha.
You don't reuse them, rewash them, or anything like that, or use them for a long period of time. You just use them a little bit and then toss them. No, not cotton. You could wear latex if you want. That's really uncomfortable. And that can be tough for some people. My presser, he's got really big hands. Latex does not work for him.
And I always found
at all.
A lot of guys in the statue community will try to wear gloves when they handle their stuff, but I always feel like you can't really feel what you're holding. I don't know.
Well, I don't know if that matters. It's not so much like everybody says, oh, the oil is in your hands, or if your hands are clean or dry. It's not that. This is a black cover, and my hand could be perfectly clean, but if I press on it hard enough, I might leave a fingerprint. And then for sure on modern, glossy black covers, you get fingerprints really easy. And you think, oh, it's just a fingerprint, but you send it to CGC, and now it's not a 9/8.
Right.
Because fingerprints, among other things, will get a really heavy hit in grade. Whereas there are other defects that don't affect it too much at all, like light tanning, for example.
I'll answer Magic the Kraken, and he's saying, like, why would fingerprints give comic a bad grade? Doesn't understand why handling the comic would cause a bad grade. Well, I mean, if you send it to CGC, they'll consider that fingerprint a defect. You've made an imperfection on the book that wasn't there originally. So when you go to grade it, it's going to get a ding. And people care because, like we just went over GPA, a 9.8 goes for $5,000. A 9.6 goes for $1,800. So there's a huge price jump between grades when you get to that high grade level. So when handling the books, yeah, you want to try to keep them as pristine as possible.
Well, and we're talking about high grade stuff, right? If you have a very good a book that's in very good condition, yeah, that's a reader. You can read it, right?
Right.
But if you got a book that's in 9.4 to 9.8, well, it's not going to get a 9.8 if it's perceived as a red book. A red book is not near mint.
Right.
A near mint book is a book that went from the distributor into a bag and board and looks perfect, like it's never been touched.
Right. Exactly.
That's near mint. And if they haven't, and if they have been touched or mishandled, then that's where things like a dry cleaning and pressing can come in and solve some of those problems, but not all of them. So it's always best to handle any comics you care about the grade with care.
Exactly.
You know, when I buy some of the modern books because I like the covers, like the homage covers, I usually will buy 2 copies, one that I'll put away. I don't want anything to happen to it. And one I can have out and display. That way, if it, you know, falls or gets a corner dinged, it doesn't matter to me, right?
So my guy Rock asking if fingerprints can they be removed? I'm going to jump out and say probably not, right?
It depends on the fingerprint. Yeah, some can. In fact,
yeah?
the easier the print gets on there, a lot of times the easier it'll come off. So if it's a modern book where your hand is clean, but it leaves fingerprints from touching it, you can wipe those off, usually with like a microfiber cloth or something like that.
Oh, okay.
But if you get those ones like the older books where you saw a fingerprint because the guy's hands were filthy and he touched the book and transferred all that dirt and oil over to the book, no, those probably won't come off, especially if they're on top of ink. They're there for sure, forever.
How's your father asking, can you get a perfect 10? You can, but that's really out of your hands. That's kind of like the luck of the draw. It has to be a perfect book.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, I don't get anything. It's really just the results. So
Yeah.
the book wants to be a 10, then it's going to get a 10, but you can't make something that normally wouldn't be a 10 into it.
More
right?
than likely, a hard stock cover book is going to get a 10 rather than a regular issue.
Yeah, like that Detective Comics homage cover.
Yeah, like Batman Damned, which is like almost like a trade paperback even.
Yeah. Yeah, those are mint right off the press.
Mike, have you submitted any books that came back 9.9s or 10s?
I haven't submitted any books myself personally that have come back that grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't heard, actually, no one's told me of any of the stuff that's gone through, whether or not. And we submit so much, I can't check the grades on all of it. I usually don't on moderns because it's a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
They're not really that common. They're common on specific books, usually. Right. It's just a book. And then if it's common, then it's not really worth a lot. It's all about, you know, this book's worth a ton in 9.8 because that's a black cover. Good luck finding a copy that doesn't have a color break. I mean, they're out there, but that's going to be tough to find. A lot of people are going to be chasing 9.6 and probably even 9.4 because it's just a tough cover.
Gotcha. All right. So basically, you looked at the book. You mentioned it had color breaks. So do you want to try to explain to the viewers what that means, color breaks?
So color breaks, that's where you look on the surface and you see there's white showing where there wasn't before or isn't supposed to. This one is really a good one because there's a corner crease right there and that breaks color. And those are the defects. Those are one of the defects that pressing won't fix. If you have those defects, those are on the book, and then it's going to get grade based on that. And when you have color breaks, those will limit what the grade of the book can be.
Right.
So, for example, if it has one little color break on the spine, then it can't be a 9.8. If it has more than, say, 4 or 5 on the spine, it can't be a 9.6. Let's see, what else about color breaks?
So if it doesn't break color, then pressing, which Mike is a service that Mike provides, you could potentially smooth that out, and that 9.6 could potentially be a 9.8 because you smoothed out that non-color breaking tick.
Right. So if you got a bend in the book that will keep it from a 9.8, you can press the bend out, then it will get the grade.
Gotcha. Cool. What else you got for us there, Mike?
Let's see. I want to talk about the history of grading.
Okay,
So
yeah, sounds good.
grading used to just be four basic grades. You had a poor, you had very good, very fine, and then near mint. And then somewhere, I think in the 90s, that evolved into fair, poor, fair, good, good, very good, fine, fine, very fine, uh, very fine near mint. And restored stuff was pretty much treated the same way as unrestored stuff. It was valued a little bit less, but not much. And it was graded the same way. Right around 99, year 2000, CCG, the parent company of NGS or NGC, the coin grading company, already had experience grading coins, so they decided to start CGC and grade comics. And then that's when we went to the GemMint 10-point scale, right, where you started at 1, 2, 3, 4, and they coincided where 4 was a very good and very fine was a NATO, and so that helped people transition over. Or a lot of times to this day, raw books will be graded as a very fine, but if it's in a third-party grading encapsulation, it will get the 8.0 numerical. And then I think even some third parties have both on the label, or did at one time. And so that's kind of how grading has evolved. And then so when CGC started their grading, that changed everything, right? Yeah. It changed everything about how restored books are treated, how they're graded, how modern books are graded, how golden age books. And
I think
it
really important about
was
CGC,
a great thing for the market, right? Because now everybody could get into it.
That's what I was going to say, because before CGC came around, the seller would tell you, hey, this is very fine. It's worth $800 per the Overstreet price guide. And if you didn't know how to grade, you just took their word for it. They could be overgrading or whatever. So CGC is now not the seller telling you it's this condition. It's a third party that has built this reputation, and you're going to trust their word for it. They have nothing to gain by overgrading this guy's book.
Right. Yeah. It solved a lot of problems, and it allowed a lot of people who weren't previously wanting to get involved in investing in comics to do so, because they could buy the book and feel comfortable that, yeah, it's in that condition. Yeah, it's been checked for restoration. Yes, it has all its pages, right? It has the Marvel value stamp, those type of things. And I don't even know what it would be like had that never came along.
Yeah, a lot of people feel like the comic industry would have crashed again sooner if it wasn't for CGC, because of all the variants and because of the movies. But CGC kind of gave a different aspect with having a census, with now us tracking with GPA and all these other type of websites. It has a better idea. You're able to quantify the value better.
Well, and it makes it so anybody can invest, right?
Right.
Anybody can buy books from Nicolas Cage to the drummer from System of the Down's got his own comic store in Vegas, right?
He's doing great. And then not even big guys like that. There's a lot of people that watch this channel or are in the Facebook group who are just now getting into it. So it's like it's still attracting new people, even though CGC has been around since what, like 2001 now?
Yeah, since 2001 or 2000, right around there.
So they're going on almost 20 years.
It's been, yeah. Yeah, it's been a long time. Wow.
So yeah, so we
Yeah.
got some
So
people. Yeah, we
and
got some people asking questions here. Our guy Kenshi, he's asking. It sounds like he's talking about leafing, but is there a way to expand the paper so you can trim it? But he's asking and get away with it being undetected. That sounds like a leafing process, no?
well, trimming was something that people got away with a lot before
Yeah.
CGC was around. And then, so now that's really tough. CGC will usually catch that. And it's really, no one in the hobby approves of it.
It's like
I
the
don't
worst
approve of
defect
it.
you can have.
Well, because where do you draw the line? If you can trim a book and that makes it near mint again, then it's just going to get trimmed as soon as it gets damaged again and again until it becomes a big little book, right? Used to joke about that. We used to
Yeah.
see pictures of it years ago. Some books, I mean, they were pretty short. The art was cut. It looked like a miswrap, but from every direction. It was terrible. So you shouldn't do it. There's no reason to do it. There's so many ways to make money in this hobby that's
Hmm.
legit.
Right.
I mean, buying and selling books is a really good thing. Um, Getting pressing in the mix because pressing's really cheap and
Right.
um, it can increase the grade almost as much as anything else individually you can do to a book. You could say, well,
So
hey, what about solvent cleaning and doing that? You can do all that work, but is it going to really do much more than just a $20 press? Probably not. So
so
why
so
monkey with all that stuff,
that's a
right?
great segue. We have a $2 super chat from Driven from Desperation. He's asking how much better does pressing make the comic? Well, I think it all depends on the comic and the type of defects it has, but there's situations where a book could be pressed and bumped up multiple grades, and that can be thousands and thousands of dollars depending on the book.
Yeah, as far as I know, the best grade increase you can get from press alone is a 5 grade bump. So, for example,
Five.
6.0 could go to an 8.5. I got some documented examples of that on our website. Those are
Hmm.
fun when you get to crack something out of a slab, press it, and then regrade it because then you know exactly how much it benefited, right? When you got
Right.
a raw book and you press it, you don't know, right? You don't. And whether or not the book's going to go up 1 grade or 5 grades depends on a whole bunch of things. The books that
Right.
go up 5 grades are probably books that are just in really nice shape, but they got gently read. So they got bends and finger bends, but nothing breaks color. It's just a
Hmm.
lot of bumps on the surface that need to be smoothed out. And so it really benefits.
Now, if you're
But
talking
that
about,
same book,
uh huh.
if that same book had a whole bunch of color breaks down the spine, well, then it might not be able to move up that much anyways because of those defects. So pressing, getting the really high grade bumps just takes the right book.
Yeah, and exactly. And then for value, I mean, if that's an amazing fantasy 15, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars increase. But if you're talking some regular book that came off the rack, you just went from a $10 graded book to maybe a $100 graded book. It just depends on the type of book and everything.
It does. And it's just part of the process. If you're going to have your books graded, then it's probably good to make sure they're going to get the best grade when they get graded. And that's, what our company's involvement is in that. And that's why we know so much about grading, because even if you're going to have CGC or CBCS, one of the other companies, grade your books, you may not want them to grade all of them because of the cost. So maybe you want to be able to grade them yourself first, make sure they're in reasonably good condition. Or maybe you got the modern books and you don't want to send them in unless they're going to be 9.8. So you want to learn how to screen your books first for 9.8. That's the stuff that we can talk about tonight. 9.8 pre-screen is a real popular service here.
Hmm.
And I don't mind educating people on how to do that themselves because a lot of the modern books just aren't worth it in 9.6. And a 9.8 pre-screen is pretty easy because it has to be perfect. If it isn't perfect, it fails. So you don't have to go, would that be an 8.0 or an 8.5? Yeah, it's easy with a 9.8. It's either perfect or it's not. And then that's how you do that.
Mike, so we have somebody asking, Alex Perez, do you still offer a service where if somebody sends you grader's notes, you can give them an idea if it'll benefit from a press?
Well, yeah, whenever anybody calls or emails inquiring about that, I'm always happy to provide what I can. But that being said, grader notes alone may not be enough. So you're welcome to get them and have me look them over, right? So if the grader notes say, you got to be careful about something. I wanted to cover this a little bit ago.
Right.
When you look at grader notes, if they say everything breaks color, then it doesn't sound like a good candidate. But you have to be careful because if they say bends or creases on back cover, right? But the back cover is white, they're not going to break color, but they might be so severe that they won't press out. Now, grader notes are helpful, but before I take a book out of a slab to be pressed and regraded, I look at it in the slab. And that's what I rely on more, is what I can see versus the notes. But sometimes the notes can help tell you, no, not going to be a candidate, especially depending on what grade the book is in now versus what room there is to go up.
Yeah, if the grader's notes say anything about creases that breaks color, the press isn't going to help.
Well, it isn't going to help those. And if you let's say it's a Amazing Spider-Man 300, and it's in a 9.4 slab, and the notes say color breaks, spine color breaks, or spine ticks break color. Okay, well then it's not going to get a 9.8. So even if it has a couple of finger dents that can be pressed out, those color breaks are going to keep it from going up in grade. In that case. Right now, if you guys say something that's an 8.0, the color breaks might not necessarily keep it from going up in grade, but not really up in grade.
So, Mike,
we have a 2 grade bump or a 3.
Quiet Storm 76 is asking, is pressing something you can do yourself easily, and how much does it cost to get a book pressed through your services here?
Okay, so the mechanical motion of pressing a book is not hard, but doing a really good job and not damaging the book is and takes time. So, of course, I encourage you to have your books professionally pressed, and it's super affordable. I mean, I got clients who have their own press, and they could press books. But to be honest, they got better things to do with their time. They're flipping books. They're making better money flipping books than they could pressing books, one book at a time in a press. And we couldn't be a business like that. We got over, well over 12 presses because that's how a business can function on that. And the other thing is, this book, you can press this book for $18. Okay. So, it's worth the $18 to get the best possible press, because you can do an okay press job and it can go up 1 grade, or you can do a really good press job and have it go up 3 grades, and you won't get the 3 grade just starting out. You'd have to practice for years most of the time, especially if you don't have a lot of time to play with it.
I've seen people burn books and such. Like Mark Knapp is saying, pressing can be done at home. Sure, it can be, but I'm not going to trust myself with pressing a high-dollar key issue. I'm going to send it to a professional every time.
Right, and of course, this podcast isn't about pressing. This is about grading. So
we're getting off
don't
track.
Mind covering. Yeah, it's not about that. And you want to press your own books. It's a free country. Just don't damage them or damage books that you care about. Everybody's always so eager to press their Hulk 181, And then it just breaks my heart when I see them and they look like, they've been run through the ringer.
Right.
It's just too bad. And as far as grading goes, if you press a book in properly, it will go down in grade. More so now than ever. The grading companies are really getting strict on that because there is a lot of amateur pressing going on. I mean, people are curious. People want to play or have fun. They try it for a little while and then they get bored. But the problem is if that stuff goes in to get graded, then they go, no, the spine's crushed, downgrade, or the book's warped, downgrade, or the book's burnt, downgrade.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen that. Mike, our guy TiVo from Lords of the Long Box, TiVo, he's asking if you could talk about the difference between Overstreet grading versus CGC grading.
Yeah, Overstreet grading. So I want to talk about how to grade. If you're just learning how to grade, there's a couple of things I want to cover. And one of those is a website here. This is great for beginners. Now, you can't get to this website anymore. It's shut down for years. But there is a link on my website to get to it through the webarchive.org. And
Gotcha.
eBigs will teach you how to grade basic grading. What you do is the first row is abrasion corner wear. So what it does is it teaches you to look what defects to look for, and you can check off the condition of your book. You can say color breaking abrasions on the corners. You'll check the box off. Then you go down to the next one, center miswrap. Is that important? Color spots. See color lift. And so it helps you look at all the different things that you should be looking for when grading a book. And then when you get down to the bottom, there's a lot to check off. Then you can click, where is it? It's somewhere here. Grade now, right? And I got a 7 for what I checked off, which would be a 7.0. Okay, so it's not super duper accurate, but you get some practice with this, and it really will help you start grading on your own. And you can get to that link if you go to our site, herorestoration.net, go to info, down to frequently asked questions, right? And then right here, first on the list, how can I learn to grade my own comics? And you can click on the eBigs link right there, and it'll take you to the web archive location of it. Okay, so that's the first thing you can do to learn about grading. And then the next is you can get an Overstreet grading guide. And now the difference between Overstreet and CGC, well, CGC is basically the evolution of Overstreet. So Overstreet has been around, was it 1971, Stephen, I think, was the first issue of Overstreet for the price guide, right?
Right.
So this one, I don't remember this. This one's old. I think it's, I don't know, early 2000s or something.
Don't use the 1971 price guide when trying to sell your comics.
No, it's fun to have one and look at, like books like Amazing Fantasy 15 was $400.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah. So, but they put out, I think, a couple. This is the most recent Overstreeting comic book grading guide. And so this is the old standard for grading your comics. And if you use this guide, it will really help you because it doesn't just say, do this, do that. It's got tons of examples and with arrows that show you, okay, this book is very fine because it's got this, this, and this. It really gets down to the nuts and bolts. And when I learned how to grade, and then I wanted my grading to be matched with what the grades were coming back from CGC, this is what prepped me for that. And then so what's happened is this kind of stops where CGC picks up. And CGC, I think probably in 2001, was not much different than this right here.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a new Overstreet grading guide. Maybe you might check on that. The differences are what's new since then. For example, tape. Tape, for example, here on this book, this Amazing Fantasy 15 here has got a lot of tape on it. And the tape is holding the cover together, right? It's keeping it attached to the pages. It's keeping pieces attached. So Overstreet grading guide might say, okay, well, it's all attached, it's all there, so it's going to be a very good 4.0. But CGC has since changed how tape is graded. So now, if you sent this book into CGC, CGC would say, well, the tape is holding the cover together, so the cover's detached. It's holding this piece together, so it's actually missing a piece. Then that's the grade it will get. Maybe it will get a 2.0. And then it's my understanding they won't downgrade in addition for the tape being there, other than where it's not performing a function. That's still evolving, but that's one example of how it's different than Overstreet. Now, I haven't read this in a long time, so there's probably a lot of differences, especially now. Back in 2009, there wasn't as many.
Mike, before you move on, because you're talking about tape, we had a question. Somebody was asking why tape is acceptable but glue isn't. Can you touch on that?
Acceptable? You mean in a blue label versus?
Yeah, I
restored?
guess that's what he's saying. That that AF-15 could have tape and be considered unrestored, but glue would give it a restored label.
Okay, so I'm not exactly clear on the answer to that question. The tape was never considered restoration, and it was applied to books from the very beginning, and it was put on a lot of books that weren't even in bad condition just to protect them because they thought that was a good thing. So that's one of the reasons why it hasn't been considered a restoration. The problem with the glue is usually the glue is not reversible, and it was. Now, what makes it different? So I'm not sure the exact details on that.
I thought it did have to do with.
It is.
I thought it had to do with the fact that you could remove tape no problem, but you might have some ink pull or whatever I forget what they call it. But with glue, it's like a permanent thing. Now there is such thing as glue removal that you could do with chemicals, though, right?
Yeah, usually not that time. Not like the Golden Age books with the glue. That usually glue is non-reversible. Whoever put it on didn't bother using a reversible glue.
Right.
I think it was just the tape was more widely accepted because really up until about 5 years ago, you could tape a piece back on that was detached and get a grade bump at the third-party graders. They were allowing it, and then people said, hey, people are applying tape on purpose, but we know now that tape is bad for a book and we shouldn't put it on there. And I think that's the primary motivation why CGC changed their stance on it. And that was prior to CBCS. And I think right out the gate, that's how CBCS treated it. You couldn't upgrade the condition of the book with tape.
Got you.
Yeah.
Cool. So what else you got? I see you have a lot of magazine style formats. Like, what is that? The first appearance of Star-Lord? Is that Rocket with that Satana book?
Yeah, we got Star-Lord and Rocket. These are just my books. I just laid out, cover the keyboard up.
Oh, I got you.
If anything happens to them, it's okay because they're mine.
Got you.
Here's something I want to show. So this is a coverless Tech 29 here.
Wow.
And
so what's that? Third appearance of Batman?
Third, yeah. This has got brittle pages, and that's why I have it here to do something about it. Brittle pages, even if the cover looks really good, will get a low grade. because that's a sign the book has not had a good life, right?
Right.
Because there's like near mint copies out there that were stored right, but that one was not. All right, hey, let's talk about so to pre-screen for 9.8, you need some magnification. This is great. Okay, you can buy this lamp on eBay for $30. And you can use it's an incandescent style socket, which I like because then I can get the bulb I want. LED, of course. I choose 6500K. If you don't want to go, you can also just use a magnifying glass. But then you got one hand on this. Again, always good to just wear some type of gloves. Anything would probably be better than your bare hands. I know with your bare hands, you could probably touch a bunch of books and everything be fine, but then there's just that one time.
Well, your hands get a little
and since
clammy.
These aren't my books, of course. Yeah. I mean, I'm getting a little talking about comics, so. And these aren't my books, so for the owner might want to go ahead and touch them with their hands, but that doesn't mean they want me to, right? So this is great, and I can look at magnification, and it really helps you see everything. Now, when
cool.
The lower you get in grade, the less you have to, really nitpick under magnification, because then you're really kind of counting how much is going on. I grabbed the wrong book here for what we're going to do for a 9.8 screen.
Okay.
We got here some Star Wars here. Number 5. We'll do number 5 because those definitely have to be 9.8s to be worth it for those.
So you're going to screen the book to see if it can hit a 9.8. If you feel like it won't, then you'll tell the owner, and you won't even bother sending it to CGC.
Won't bother sending it, won't bother pressing it or nothing. So that means, of course, since I haven't pressed it yet, if I see a pressable defect, I'm just going to assume that that'll come out and I'll ignore it. I'm looking for stuff that won't press out, that'll keep it from a 9.8.
Gotcha. I know that magnifying glass is cool stuff, man. And it's like a magnifying glass with a light in it that you can put your own bulb in there, put an LED light. That looks super helpful.
Yeah. Oh, it is really. I couldn't pre-screen for 9.8 without it. There's no way. So what I do is I just start at one edge and I go and I look around the edge, because if you're screening for 9.8, almost all your defects are going to be here first. And if you really want to cut to the chase, you can look at the spine first, because that's the biggest culprit.
Right.
But I do want to make sure there's no corner creases, because that'll kill it. You also want to look for thumb creases up top. So this one's got a little bit of a 1, but it doesn't break color. If it broke color, then that would put the brakes on it right away. And it still might not come out all the way, and then that would be a problem. Okay, so I'm coming down the spine, and I can see right here a color break right in Chewbacca's hand. Now, if I was looking at it here, I can still see it even without the magnification. So I can stop. I know that it's not going to be a 9.8. All right, now let's say, for example, though, this was a 9.6 screen. So far with that one little color break, that's fine with a 9.6 screen. Now the color break, maybe you'll see it, maybe you won't. It's right in his hand. It's a little short one. If it was really long, like a quarter of an inch long, then that would keep it from a 9.6. So when we talk about how many color breaks are on the spine, we're also talking about size. So we're or usually, to be more specific, ticks. We'll call them ticks because they're smaller. So there's one here. There's another one right there. I'm going to count. I don't want to see really more than, there's a third one right there. And then I also see this corner's been dinged right here on the spine. Oh, and look, and when you know it, the backboard's bent. So the book fell at some point, probably. But the crunch is not that bad. It's very slight. And it looks worse under magnification. You get used to that after a while, though.
Right.
And you check the back, and you're just looking for the same thing, making sure there's no color breaks if there's ink, which the cover does wrap around the back on this issue. It's not centered right. Usually centering won't keep it from a 9/8 that I know of.
Yeah, the miswraps
Production
or whatever.
defects. Mm-hmm. Yeah, production defects usually get a slide. There's like these printer's creases that happen right here. Mm-hmm. It's right there. You can see where it starts there. Those get a slide. Modern books, a lot of times they'll have those bindery tears here at the corner, and they kind of stick out like a hangnail.
Especially the oversized books.
Yeah, especially ASM 700.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike, a lot of people are asking, like, what if you can tell them how much you charge for pre-screens and how much you charge for press, and if it's different depending on the tier of the book.
Sure. Now it is all here on the website, but pre-screening for minimum grade is $2 a book. It's going to help those.
And if you got print depending on the my bad.
Bring that up. So we got here on the site, you go to info, or the services, and go down to price chart. You can go in here. It has a pressing chart here. Modern books, though, are usually $12 to $18. You got some pre-screen services down here. We offer different variations, although the one I think is the most useful is the 9/8, 9/6 screens. Those are good. We do restoration checks too.
A lot of great services. It's herorestoration.net, correct?
Yep, herorestoration.net.
All right, good, because that's the banner I've been putting up. All right, cool.
All right.
So good
yeah,
stuff
so I think I kind of covered it. Oh, on a 9/6 screen, if you see a corner break, a color break on the corner, it's probably not going to get a 9/6. They have less of an impact on the spine. The spine, it's real common. A lot of these books, when they came off the printer, already had a color break on the spine because that's just the nature of the binding. I won't do it. But, over the years, the book does this, right? And whenever the book does this, that causes a tick. And sometimes those ticks pop out when it springs back, and sometimes they stay.
It almost makes you think. It almost makes you think we should be using something harder than these bags and boards that we're using, right?
Yeah, we probably should be using the like the full backs, right? Probably. But yeah, that gets to be a lot. Well, and see, and it's something you almost can't avoid, because at some point you're going to take the book out, and if I'm just holding it like this, it's probably flexing a little at both ends, not much, because I am cradling it. I don't want it to flex, but it's pretty easy to do, and so grading gets a little bit of a curve on there. But those corner break creases, that's a big no-no. You'll get knocked down for that. That means the book wasn't treated right. That doesn't happen in production usually. That happens because somebody, tried to flip open the book and just abuse the corner. Because a lot of how well your book grades is on the perception. How well does the grader think the book's been taken care of? Care means a lot, right? And that's why tanning will impact the grade. The book may still look great, but it does tell the grader that it wasn't stored the best, right? Because if you store it great, they don't tan at all. I've seen golden age books that are bone white, or was it like that Amazing Fantasy 15 9.4? That paper is the worst paper. To get that book in a 9.4, that had to have been it's like a file copy, someone else other than Stan Lee, of course. I hate to joke about him. Long live the king. But he was not really very good at storing his books. His file copies, I think, were some of the lowest grade stuff I've seen.
It's funny though because the Hulk ones, I've noticed a lot of Hulk ones had white pages. It must be the type of paper that was printed on or something.
The Hulk ones have white pages. I hadn't really noticed that.
Yeah. Compared to like ASM 1 or AF 15 or X-Men 1, I've seen it a lot more. Also, the Green Laser is saying they do make acrylic backboards that are solid and transparent. I don't know. I haven't tried those.
Yeah. Actually, I think I have a bag of those around somewhere. Sure, I never get the time to play with my books, so I never even put those in there. The thing is, though, is cost, right? A lot of guys say, hey, it's going to cost too much, especially if you're collecting a lot of the modern stuff and you're more interested in the story, but you want to retain the value in the books too.
Yeah, those acrylic boards might run you $1 a piece or something expensive, right? You know.
I don't know. I know just even the E. Gerber backboards are good boards. They're the ones that are truly acid free, and you can get those pretty thick, and they'll set you back. And E. Gerber's the one that does the Mylar bags, although I think any brand Mylar is probably fine. Those 2 mil Mylars are good. The 4 mils are not. They're too thick. They look great, but it's really hard to take the books in and out. You can damage them really easy with that. But yeah, the E. Gerber backboards are really good because the regular backboards, these cheapos, they have an acid core. They're not truly acid free. They're good for 5 to 10 years. Same with the poly bags, good to 5 to 10 years. Same with the slabs. You should have your slabs reholded after so many years. They just it needs to be changed out.
That sucks when you have a big collection of slabs.
It does. It does indeed.
So I think we learned a lot, man. We talked about how spine ticks that break color can prevent you from 9.8s. We talked about production defects that don't affect the grade. What did we talk about? Using gloves so you don't fingerprint your book and downgrade it.
Yeah, we talked about all that. Let's see. Major defects.
You know what I wanted to ask you, Mike? So we have a book here. We have a Fantastic Four #1. It's a 2.5. And I noticed that at the very top, let me see if I can make this bigger. It has water stains on the top. Can you see that, or is it too low quality?
Let me take a look here.
So from my understanding, with a water grade, you can only get a certain grade. Even if everything was perfect, you're capped at a certain grade for that. Is that correct? Or
the water stains, water stains can cap a grade for sure. And they have a big impact on the grade.
Right. Yeah, because it could be structurally sound, but
yeah. Now, Fantastic Four #1 is delicate paper, so those stains would be difficult to remove, and you wouldn't want to pursue that. And unfortunately, that is one of the things that causes the grade to go down really quick, because it tells you again something bad happened. Right. And you probably, if you're lucky, you don't have the rusted staples and all that.
Right. Yeah. So rusted staples would be an indication of storage, right? The way it was stored.
Right. Oh, and I don't know if you were trying to get at this, but even though it's got the water stains, that doesn't mean a press wouldn't increase its grade, because you said it's a 2.5 right now, and a book can have stains much higher than that. I got one I can show you that's a 6.5 with some pretty heavy staining. Or I don't know if it's heavy staining, it's light staining.
Yeah, I wasn't sure like what cap the grade was. So you think it could go as high as that with water stains? Not that this book would go, but a book with water stains could be as much as that.
Yeah, so it just depends on what else is going on with the book.
Gotcha. Yeah, so Z2K, Mike said that water stains can be removed in some cases, but he wouldn't recommend it on this book with the quality of paper and everything.
No, I wouldn't recommend it on that book for sure. And the thing is, to remove the stains, you're going through a lot of trouble. So you gotta weigh the pros and cons on that versus something like if I'm going through my collection and I want to bump some books, I'm going to go for the books that just need a press. I don't want to mess with the ones that have to be washed and taken apart and all that. So here's this one here. This is a 6.5. It's got this stain up here in the top right. It even lost some ink from the stain action. There's a little bit of a stain there.
But you can see that book looks great, though.
Runs through. It does look good otherwise.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, great, but that stain is keeping it down.
Is that your book, Mike?
Keeping it down a lot. No, it's not.
Okay.
No, it's not.
Nice book, though.
Yeah. I get to see some nice books. For sure.
Awesome. Mike, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about regarding grading?
Regarding grading? Oh, sure. We could talk about some CGC grade stuff.
Sure.
Like if you haven't submitted to CGC and you want to know things like what does it cost, how do you know, how long does it take, those type of things.
Right. There has been some questions about turnaround time.
Yeah. So I brought up a chart here, and it has the cost and the different tiers. And so the first thing is it's going to depend on the book, right? So let's say there are these Star Wars number 5s, right? So these would qualify for modern tier, right, which is 1975 to date, as long as the value is $200 or less per book. And then the cost is $20. Or I think it's $16 after our discount. All right. Turnaround time is 23 days. Now you could do fast track. Well, it says 23 days. I think that's 23 working days. Fast track is 10 working days, and that adds another $10 to the price. Now, this book, you wouldn't want to add $10 to the price and send it fast track because it's not worth enough. You want to go through the least expensive way possible. What's also important is when you send books to CGC and CGC sends them back to you, you got a shipping fee that starts out around $35, $40, and then only goes up a little bit for each book. So you will send as many books to them as you'll save on shipping, and you want them to be in the same tier, like modern books, and then you have for copper books. The older copper books are older than 75. They'll have to go in another tier. That means that they'll ship separately from these books in the modern tier. So again, you want to make sure you have enough of each tier. So a common mistake people will make.
There'll be a totally different order. They'll have its own separate shipping, separate invoice fee, and all of that, correct?
Separate for each tier. So that's why a common mistake people will make is they'll send me all these Star Wars, right? And then they'll just send me one Kung Fu. And that one's going to have to go all by itself in an economy tier while these guys go in modern. And then this one's going to have a $40 shipping fee, right? So either, all in one tier or get some more in each tier you're going to send. Okay, the more you value your book, the more expensive the grading is going to cost. Because each tier has a value limit. So, for example, you can't get this book graded for $20. This book's got to go under fair market value for grading at 3%.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that CGC still considers anything 1975 to current as modern tier. It always seems a little outdated to me.
Well, it didn't used to be that way. It used to be 1980 and newer was modern tier. And then I think the community was asking to have older books included in. And then that's when they changed it to 1975 and newer. And I think that was to get that late Bronze Age into a more affordable submission tier because they just weren't worth the having to go in economy tier.
I see.
Or worth waiting that long.
Yeah, but now Bronze Age books are a killer.
Right? The Bronze Age stuff is good. Yeah, even the copper is great. A lot of the coppers getting to be real popular. Thor 337 went berserk. Of course, that one's worth a lot of 9.8. I'll tell you why. Because most of those have a spine break, color breaks off the line.
Is that
you'd be lucky to find one that doesn't.
Is that the Better Ray Bill book?
I don't know. It's the white cover. It's the one with the animal Thor.
Oh yeah, that's Better Ray Bill. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't. All I know is I get a lot of them, right? I know when something's hot because more than one copy starts showing up. And that's how I know when it's hot. I'll say, oh, hey, did they make a movie announcement? They'd be like, yeah, you didn't hear it? I'm like, no, but I see the book coming in. So I'm assuming, it's like Fantastic Four. All of a sudden they start coming in. I was like, what happened? Oh, they announced that they sold to Disney. I'm like, oh no, I sold my collection 6 months ago.
That's how it goes, right?
Yeah, which is why I leave that to you guys that like to buy and sell and watch the market. It's really like stocks.
It is,
you really can invest and you can win, you can lose. I don't have the patience for that, so instead I just make all you guys money by taking your books, trying to make them better so that they'll be worth more. And then everybody's happy. We're preserving them. Getting them in the slab helps preserve them, helps lock in that static value, which is great for just, protection for value.
For sure. Hey, Mike, we had a good question. Lot of guys. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that someone had a good question that I always wondered, and I never took the time to find out. But when you're bagging and boarding, are you supposed to put the book on the shiny, glossy side of the board or the other side?
The glossy side is the side that's treated more.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's what a couple other people were saying in the comments. Cool. Good to know.
Yeah, and then I think the fullbacks are glossy on both sides. Now, it's funny because the E. Gerber boards I mentioned are better. They're not really glossy. They're more of a matte. But that's because they are acid-free through and through. And they have a lot more absorbent ability to absorb the gases rather than reflect them off. So they really are. I've seen a couple of people do the homework, and they really are the best backboard for long-term storage, especially. All the other brands, they say, even if they say that they're fully acid-free, turns out they're not.
Right.
I don't know what the deal is with that. Let's see. What else we cover? I think we kind of ran through it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, and we're at about an hour, so I think it's probably a good time to stop here. So definitely a lot of great information for new and old collectors, Mike, and we're going to continue to do these live streams, maybe once a week, once every other week. Who knows? We'll figure it out. But we'll try to touch on as much collecting tips as possible and how to preserve books, keep them valuable, and things like that. Definitely check out Mike's work on HeroRestoration.net. He's on Instagram under, is it Hero_Restoration?
Yeah, on Instagram. But if you don't type in the underscore, it'll pull me up first anyway.
Cool. So Mike is a professional comic book restoration, pressing, pre-screens. I definitely would recommend to send your stuff to him instead of setting up a CGC account, sending your stuff without getting pressed and leaving money on the table.
Yeah, we'll take care of the CGC for you and 20% off the submission fee.
Boom! It pretty much pays for Mike's fee, so I mean it's really a no-brainer to use his services.
Yeah. And those copper books, the savings on the grading fee pays for the press.
You can't ask for anything better than that. All right, man.
No,
well,
everybody's happy.
Mike, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this information with us. Hopefully, a lot of people send their books your way. You'll take good care of them. And thanks for everyone watching. If you're watching on the replay, leave a like, leave us a comment if you have any questions, and we'll try to get to it as soon as possible. But appreciate you guys watching. Peace.
Thanks for watching. Bye.